Hi, welcome back to Life in the Lobby. I just want to give you a brief introduction as to how I ended up working within the hotel and hospitality industry for over 30 years. In 1984, it's quite some time ago now, I'd come out of the Royal Navy. I'd been in the services for almost 7 years, and I was working in central London doing some security work. And I was actually working in a major bank at the time, which was the Bank of Credit and Commerce in Leadenhall Street in the City of London. And I wasn't happy there. It was a job, and I'd like to say it paid the bills. It didn't pay a lot of bills, to be totally honest. The money was terrible. So I started reading the Evening Standard while I was travelling backwards and forwards to work, and I was living in Enfield at the time in North London, and I saw a job advertised in the Evening Standard, and it was for a backdoor security officer at one of London's leading hotels on Park Lane. And when I looked at it, it was great because the money was almost double the figure that I was on working for the security company, and it also included meals on duty, which I didn't have at this place that I was working in the banks. So I applied for it, which was great. Thought I'd give it a try. I was not lost by trying, and I was lucky enough to get an interview. So I was invited to come and have an interview with the hotel, and I went. There's a few things that I haven't told you yet, but I'd never been in a hotel apart from once in my life, in as far as hotels are concerned. And when I got to this hotel, it was a massive hotel. Park Lane, there was Rolls Royces, there was Aston Martins, there was all of these massive big cars, expensive cars sitting in the forecourt of the hotel, and it was quite daunting, to be totally honest. I was directed round to the staff entrance where you had to go and sign in, and I was met by a really grumpy old guy. Jim, his name was, Irish guy, big stocky Irish man, lovely guy. Very abrupt though, didn't take any crap from anybody, and he directed me through to the human resources office, the HR department, and I was interviewed. Now, one of the questions that I was asked was, have you ever experienced a hotel 5-star experience? And I said, well, no. They said, what experience have you got within the hospitality industry? I said, well, not a lot. The only time I had ever been inside a hotel, and especially a 5-star hotel, was when I was actually in the Navy, in the Royal Navy. And I was on a ship, it was HMS Velos actually, and we stopped in Istanbul. We were doing some activities on the Bosphorus, and we pulled into Istanbul for a few days, R&R for leave, etc. So myself and a couple of my friends, we went ashore. And the normal scenario with sailors going ashore is booze, booze, women, booze. Not always in that order. So this is what we did. We went ashore, we had a few drinks, we were seeing what was around, and we saw that there was a massive hotel there. There was a great big hotel, and there was a lot of people going in there, especially nice looking young ladies. So we migrated towards that, and it turned out, and I'm pretty sure the hotel that we went into was the Hilton Hotel in Istanbul, big hotel with casino, and we went in there. We managed to get into the bar. There was no real problems with that. We were obviously fairly well dressed. We were in our civvies. We were out for a night out, but we were rather drunk, as was normal in those days, and we decided we were going to try and get into the casino. We thought we'll try our luck on the tables, etc. Now, this is when I was 19, 20. Couldn't have been much older than that. 19, in fact. 19. And I knew nothing about hotels. I knew nothing about casinos. So we just walked into the casino or try and get in there, and we were stopped. We were stopped by their security people. We were questioned, and we were asked whether or not we were residents, if we were members, etc. And we didn't have any of that. We weren't members, we weren't residents, but we were sailors. So therefore, we were quite, let's say, challenging. And I realise now that I was the type of person that I became used to dealing with when I was in the hotel industry. So we were becoming a bit more challenging to the security team, and to a point where they turned around and they said, right, you're going to have to leave. We didn't want to leave. So we were, I'd say, politely escorted off the premises. The fact that we were actually physically removed from the premises, I'll leave that to your imagination. So that's the only incident that I ever had that I could relate to as far as hotels was concerned. So I decided probably not the best thing to tell the HR department that this is what my experience of hospitality and hotels, especially in the 5-star market, was concerned. So I avoided that and I said, no, I don't have any experience. And I talked to them about my experience working within the banking industry, and the fact that I was ex-military, I was disciplined, and I was looking for a career that I could start. And it seemed to go down well. Obviously, avoiding the fact that I was permanently drunk while I was ashore in the Navy. Well, most of the times. So I managed to get a second interview, which was fantastic. And I ended up meeting up with a gentleman who was one of the heads of security for the company. And he was a really great guy, Pat, his name was. And I met him in Brewer Street, just off Soho, which was the company's offices at that time. And again, I was a bit dubious about where I was going to go with this, and I got in there and met this gentleman, Pat, and as soon as he learned that I was ex-services, ex-forces, that's all the conversation that we had. And I'm thinking, I know nothing about this. You know, I don't know anything about security. Although part of my application did say that I'd attended a course whilst in the Royal Navy in security management. Now, when I say I attended a course, when you leave the Navy, when you leave the forces, you get what's called a resettlement course. So they try and train you in alternative careers. So I'd seen that there was a course going in Plymouth for security management, and it was being held. It was a 2-week course held at Plymouth College, University. I can't remember which one it was now. So I applied for that, and I didn't apply because I wanted to learn that course. I wanted to get that qualification. I actually applied purely and simply because at that time I had a girlfriend who lived in Plymouth, and I managed to get on the course. Now, I turned up at Plymouth, and I was staying with this girlfriend. I'm not going to say names at the moment because that didn't last. And I went for the induction day at the course, and that was basically the only day I went. I got there. I was a rating. I wasn't a petty officer, chief petty officer, an officer or anything like that. And I was the only rating on this course. And I felt a bit out of my depth, to be totally honest, because there was a lot of theory, etc. I was an engineer. I was using my hands more than anything else, not always using my brain, to be totally honest, which is why I ended up with the nickname of Buster, because I kept breaking things. So I went to the course. I went there for the first day, and I never went back, because I'd found other things to be doing with my time in Plymouth. And obviously having a girlfriend in Plymouth at that time turned out to be quite an interesting time. And we managed to spend 2 weeks together. Unfortunately, once I'd finished the course and I ended up back in Portsmouth to serve out the rest of my my time before I left the Navy, we separated, which is just life. So I actually got a certificate of attendance saying that I'd been on a security management training program. I went one day, I signed in, and that was it. So not really a qualification, but hey, it was on my CV. And that seemed to work well. So I got the job. I got the job at this hotel, and I was a backdoor security officer. Now, the backdoor security had a responsibility for controlling entry and exits for staff, for contractors, etc. They were responsible for fire alarms, monitoring, for patrols at night time, making sure that the hotel was safe. And I thought that was a great idea, a great place to work. We were in charge of key control and accessibility. And we were responsible, and we took it very seriously. So much so that the people on the back door there were quite an eclectic bunch of people. We had a ex-school teacher, Tony. We had Jim, which was the gruff old Irishman. And Jim, to be totally honest, he gave me a bit of advice when I started there. And he said to me, he said, and it's something, to be totally honest, that I've kept going ever since. He said, remember, these people we are working with will become friendly. They will become your friends to a degree. He said, but always remember, you're here to do a job. And if that friendship impacts on your capability and your ability to do your job, then you're being compromised. So you are allowed to give your friends and your work colleagues the benefit of the doubt. But if that benefit of that doubt keeps happening and somebody is pushing that friendship and that responsibility to its boundaries, then they are not friends. They are just taking the piss. They are treating you with disrespect, and they are putting you and your career on the line. So always remember that you are there to do a job. And that's something I stuck to for a long time, and I still do. So my first initial interviews with the hotels and hospitality was great. It went well. And now I was inducted, and I was in this 5-star environment. 5-star. Wow. You know, the difference that I saw in what was expected of the staff in the hotels, the service levels that were given were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the company I was working for then was a family company, and you could see that in everything they did, and it was a great company to work for. So I started working. It was a great time. And we came very quickly to understand that you had to have a sense of humour when working in hotels, without a doubt, because a lot of it is deemed on the fact that the guest is absolute. But then dealing with the guests is great, but then we were dealing with staff, contractors, etc. So you had to build up that bit of resilience. You had to have a sense of humour, because not everything you dealt with was always funny. Some of it was quite challenging, to be totally honest. But I learned that fairly quickly in having a sense of humour, because I was tested on that very quickly. Now, the first time I can remember having to go with that aspect of understanding and fun was on a day in April 1984. And I'd literally only been working there about a week, 2 weeks. But during that time, it was great, because I was socialising. I hadn't been doing any socialising with the previous job, because I didn't know anybody. I was going into work, I was going home. So I never really built there any social interaction. But within the hotels and hospitality, that was one of the key factors that keeps people there. It's the people you work with. So it became very common for us to have a drink after work and, do a bit of socialisation, which meant meeting other people, having a life, which was nice. And I remember being on duty on the back door, and I was still learning. And one of the security officers, because there was several layers of security there. We had backdoor security officers, we had front of house security officers, and they were the people who were responsible for looking after the guests and their safety, etc., and deterring any criminal activities that may be coming into the hotel. And then we had the senior management, the assistant security manager and the security manager. So it was quite a big group. So I was the lower runs to start with. And I remember being on duty with Jim, I think it was, and one of the security officers coming to me, and he gave me a piece of paper, and he said, "Paul, you need to give this lady a call now." What is it? He went, "I've no idea." He said, "You've got this call came in." He said, "I've took the call." She said, "It's urgent, she speaks to you. Give her a call now. Her name's Liz." And I couldn't remember. I thought, I don't know anybody by the name of Liz. And I was racking my brains. And I thought, I don't know. And I said, who is she? And he goes, I've no idea. He said, all she said is, I need to speak to you urgently. So he gave me the number. So I phoned the number, and the number was answered, and there was a gentleman on the other end of the line. He goes, hello, how can I help you? And I said, hi, my name's Paul Keats. I've been given this message to call Liz urgently. Can you put me through to her, please? And he went, you're taking the piss, aren't you? I went, sorry? He said, you're taking the piss. I went, no, I'm not. He said, this is Buckingham Palace, and hung up. It was at that point I heard all of the security officers, the managers, the assistant managers, even Jim giggling away. I didn't realise it was April the 1st and I'd just been scammed, I'd just been tricked. And that stuck with me for a while. You've got to have the ability to laugh at yourself. I was petrified that I was going to get a knock on the door by Buckingham Palace, by the police saying, why are you calling the Buckingham Palace trying to talk to the Queen? But hey, never mind. That's just a brief introduction to 30 years working in the hospitality and hotel industry. I hope you'll tune in again for the next instalment in Life in the Lobby. Till next time, take care.